Hi, everyone. I'm Eva, and welcome to our unique and exclusive channel. We're thrilled to have you here as part of our amazing community of learners. Together, we'll work on building your listening, reading, and comprehension skills in fun and engaging ways. With us, you will go beyond learning a language by discovering valuable and interesting daily life themes. So, be patient and spend more time listening, which is the key to mastering any language. Now, let's dive into part one of today's podcast with my good friend, Lewis. I am very excited about today's topic. Hi, Lewis. What exciting topic do you have for us today?
Thank you, Eva. Dear followers, welcome to your channel, in which you have a path for direct access to mastering the English language. All you need is your willingness to learn with a little seriousness and more discipline. Today's topic title is Enjoying Your Language Journey. By the way, I'm going to tell you, don't try to study the basics of the language that you are trying to learn. Don't try to master them. Especially at the beginning, don't even worry about the basics in a language. Why do I say that? First, in my beginnings, I have found it impossible to master the basics of grammar, vocabulary, conjugation tables, etc. It just doesn't work. The second reason, which is the most interesting, is the theory called the natural order of language acquisition. It's one of Stephen Krashen's principles for language acquisition, and it says that there is a natural order according to which we acquire a new language. If you search for this theory, you find controversial opinions on it. You'll find people supporting the idea and others criticizing it. One of the criticisms seems to be that obviously if an English-speaking person is learning French, then there may be a natural order of acquisition for that English-speaking person learning French. However, if a Spanish-speaking person learns French, then that natural order would be different because the Spanish-speaking person is influenced by their familiarity with Latin-based languages. But those opinions don't in any way make the theory of natural acquisition less valid. It just says that there's a natural order of acquisition, which may be different depending on your native language and the language you're trying to learn. With this natural order, and when you practice a lot of listening and reading, your vocabulary will be acquired naturally, so you increase your level of comprehension. Because some words are going to appear more often than others do, so you'll acquire them earlier without any particular effort. However, other expressions may be hard and resistant. You take longer to acquire them, so with serious practice, you gradually become more and more familiar with them because your brain is thinking in terms of logical patterns. Ultimately, I think it's important to de-emphasize this idea of basics in the beginning. If I keep only on listening, reading, practicing the language, and by continuing to get my meaning across, and by making mistakes, which I have to accept, slowly but surely I will develop proper habits in my language, and I will be able to master it later. So don't beat yourself up if you can't master the basics. Focus on enjoying your language journey. That was the topic of the day, Eva. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Lewis. Fantastic job today. What an interesting topic, and we're so glad to have you with us. Now, dear followers, it's time to explore the second and final part of this amazing episode. Get ready for a dynamic duo podcast with Sarah and David. Let's jump right in without further ado.
Okay, so have you ever felt stuck, like you're hitting a wall when you're trying to learn a new language?
Yeah.
It's like all those grammar drills and vocab lists, they're just not clicking right.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, today we're going to do a deep dive
Okay.
into a podcast episode that says, throw those ideas right out the window.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's all about this really fascinating concept
Okay.
called the natural order of language acquisition.
Ooh, I like that.
How it can totally change the way you think about learning.
I'm ready. I'm ready for my whole world to be shifted.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, let's do it.
So how about you tell us a little bit more about this, like, flipping the script idea?
Yeah, so instead of like forcing yourself to memorize all these complex rules right from the start, right out the gate,
Yeah.
this theory suggests that like we actually acquire language
Naturally.
in stages. Yeah, naturally, it's almost like our brains are kind of wired for it.
Okay, I'm intrigued,
Right.
but I need a little bit more than just stages.
Okay, fair enough.
What does this, like, natural order, what does it look like?
So think of it like unlocking levels in a game.
Okay.
So like in the beginning stages of the game, your brain is going to prioritize the things that it sees most often.
Okay.
So like frequently used words and simple phrases.
Okay.
You might start understanding like basic conversations
Right.
before you even really grasp like complex grammar.
Like the gist of it.
Totally, the gist, exactly.
Okay, yeah.
It's like when you listen to a song in a new language.
Oh, yeah.
You may not get every single word, but you start picking up the gist.
Right.
You might even be humming along.
Right. Yeah, I actually have an example of this.
Okay.
I was struggling with German grammar for months.
Oh, yeah. Classic.
And I was like, I'm never going to get this.
It's so hard.
And then I started watching these German TV shows.
Yeah.
And suddenly
with magic.
it started to click.
Totally. And that's the beauty of it, right?
Right.
It aligns with how we naturally learn.
It does.
Think about it. How did you learn your first language? I mean, you didn't start with textbooks,
Oh, no.
right? You listened, you observed, and you imitated.
As a baby.
Totally.
Mm.
And this theory argues that we can tap into that same, like, innate ability when we're learning a new language as adults.
Oh, I like that.
Right.
But I mean, what about critics?
Oh, there are always critics.
There are always critics, right? I mean,
Yeah.
some people must argue that you need that grammar foundation.
Oh, absolutely. There are differing opinions out there.
Yeah.
Some argue that a structured approach is important,
Right.
especially for adults.
Like having a teacher.
Yeah, having explicit grammar instruction, it provides a framework.
Okay.
But the proponents of this natural order, they argue that those grammar rules can be more effectively acquired later,
Okay.
after you've developed a feel for the language.
So you don't need to, like, sit there with flashcards.
Not necessarily right. You can,
Okay.
but it's more about immersing yourself and getting consistent interaction and practice.
So is it more about shifting the focus then?
Exactly. Shift the focus. Okay.
Prioritize immersion.
Okay.
Consistent interaction with the language.
What would that look like?
So you can listen to music podcasts, you can watch movies,
No?
you can even read simple books.
Oh.
The more you immerse yourself, the more your brain starts recognizing those patterns and those aha moments
Yeah.
where the grammar rules suddenly make sense. They'll start happening naturally.
That would be great.
Right.
But are there any downsides?
Always got to think about the downsides.
Yeah. Could it lead to like neglecting important grammar rules or developing bad habits?
Valid concern.
Right.
While the natural order emphasizes organic learning,
Right.
it doesn't necessarily mean neglecting grammar altogether.
Okay.
The idea is to strike a balance
Okay.
between immersing yourself in the language and gradually incorporating more structured grammar learning as you progress.
So like maybe, start with the natural order
Yeah.
and then kind of
Sprinkle in some grammar.
sprinkle it in. Yeah.
Right.
And of course, like having a good teacher or language partner
Could be helpful for feedback.
for feedback. Totally.
Yeah, this is really making me rethink how I approach language learning.
Too.
It seems like a lot less pressure.
So much less pressure.
Like instant fluency.
Right.
It's more about like enjoying the journey.
It is.
Yeah.
It takes the pressure off and it encourages you to embrace those inevitable mistakes
Oh, yeah.
as part of the process.
Everybody makes mistakes.
Everybody makes mistakes.
Yeah.
It's how we learn.
Right.
Think of it this way. Every time you stumble
Yeah.
or mispronounce a word, your brain is actually learning and adapting.
They're growing.
It's growing.
So what would you say is the big takeaway here?
The big takeaway is instead of getting bogged down by the pressure of mastering grammar from day one,
Yeah.
focus on creating a fun
Yeah.
and engaging learning environment.
Yeah. I love that.
Right. It's about surrounding yourself with the language, experimenting, making mistakes, and allowing yourself to naturally absorb it.
This has been really insightful. It's like you've given me permission to let go of that perfectionism
Let it go.
and just dive in.
Just dive in, right? So with that in mind, I want to leave you with something to consider
Okay.
as you continue on your language learning journey.
Yeah.
What if instead of doing those grammar drills,
Yeah.
you listened to an hour of music or watched a movie
Oh.
in your target language?
That sounds fun.
How do you think that would affect not only your progress, but also your enjoyment?
I think I'd enjoy it a lot more,
Me too.
and I'd probably learn more.
Probably.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today,
It was a pleasure.
and thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.
See you later.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, David. You two are simply the best. Lewis, we've made it to the end of today's podcast. To wrap up and add more value to today's topic, let me quickly summarize the key points for you. This podcast excerpt discusses a theory of language acquisition called the natural order hypothesis, arguing against the importance of mastering basic grammar and vocabulary initially. The Unlock Your English team suggests focusing on extensive listening and reading to naturally acquire vocabulary and comprehension. We emphasize that this natural order varies depending on the learner's native language and the target language. Despite criticisms of the theory, we maintain that this approach promotes fluency and enjoyment of the learning process. Ultimately, we encourage learners to prioritize practice and communication over immediate mastery of the basics. Dear followers, if you're enjoying these videos, don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and share your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for being with us. I'm sending you love and respect. See you very soon in the next video.